The state of California entered the Union as the 31st state on 9 September 1850, almost 172 years ago. It was christened the Golden State after the bounty of mineral wealth that was then being extracted from around the San Francisco Bay Area. California became a permanent one-party Democrat state on 4 January 1999, a little over 23 years ago, and today they still call it the Golden State, after the color of the shower that nice homeless man gave you at the bus stop today. Since that day, California has gone from having a middle-of-the-road tax burden to the most onerously crushing tax burden this side of the French Alps. It's gone from having a high but tolerable cost of living to a completely intolerable cost of living. It's gone from having some of the best public schools in the country to having the absolute worst. It's gone from being a place where violent crime had been steadily declining for 30-plus years to a place where violent crime has exploded to unprecedented, unmanageable levels. It's gone from a place where you could walk from San Ysidro to Eureka and not see half a dozen hobos and vagrants to a place where twice as that many hobos and vagrants are currently living in a tent city under your nearest freeway overpass. And most amazingly, given the natural beauty of the place and the pleasantness of the climate, in less than a quarter century, California has gone from being the place everybody wants to come live in, which it had been for the previous 150 years straight, to being a place that people are desperate to escape. California lost population for the first time in 2020. It lost population again in 2021. It will lose population again in 2022. And that's quite a remarkable thing because consider how much this state government loves illegal aliens. This state government never met an illegal alien it didn't want to support unconditionally from the cradle to the grave. This state government is fully on board with Biden and Mayorkas packing the illegal aliens in by the millions, so we can safely assume that hundreds of thousands of them are winding up in California on an annual basis, and yet their numbers are still dwarfed by the number of law-abiding citizens who are fleeing the state in terror. But Governor Gavin Newsom, that visionary of visionaries, he thinks he's got the answer to reversing the great Cal exit out migration of 2020. He thinks he has got the silver bullet for turning California back into a must-see travel destination. Or the silver coat hanger, as the case may be. Because yes, that's right, you guessed it, Gavin Newsom is going to rescue California with abortion tourism. And yes, I know this sounds like it should be a funny parody, but this is actually serious. He came out and said this. He is deadly serious. Gavin Newsom wants his contribution to history. He wants his little thread of the moral fabric of the nation to be that he was the inventor of abortion tourism. And come on, it's not like he's going to stop at just extending the invitation. At saying, hey, if you wind up stranded in one of those evil red states, unable to access that thing we call reproductive health care, then you fly yourself out here to California and we will make quick work of that little annoyance in your belly. It's just like our new state motto says, no fetus can beat us. No, I guarantee you that by this time next week, some raving lunatic in the California Assembly or the state Senate, doesn't matter which, will be ramming through a bill saying abortion tourists should get free round-trip plane tickets and the abortion should be on the House too, courtesy of the beneficence of the California taxpayer. And if there is any debate on the bill, it'll be because some even crazier Democrat wants to build a series of 5-star state-owned and operated abortion resorts all up and down the coastline, where you can schedule your abortion in between your hot yoga class and your cucumber facial and relaxing by the pool and horseback riding on the beach. Welcome to Gavin's by the Sea. We hope you enjoy your stay. We hope it's both invigorating and deadly. This scheme is going to be such a smashing success. Eventually, woke Disney will probably want to get in on the act too. They will build their own Star Wars and Marvel-branded abortion resorts where for an extra $500, a cast member dressed as Rey Skywalker will use her yellow lightsaber to perform your abortion personally. And when she's done, she'll say, "Woohoo, girl power, smash the patriarchy." Huh? What's that? Of course she's qualified to perform the procedure. She's Rey Skywalker, for Christ's sake. She's the bestest ever at everything. So there you go. It's May the 4th, and I did an obligatory Star Wars reference, and I bet I'm the only guy on YouTube who did it in the context of lightsaber abortion. Battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where nothing says I love you like 20 minutes of hot, sloppy judicial review. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to the program. I am your eponymous host and humble servant. And I want to take a trip in the time-traveling DeLorean of your mind back to 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago, the Russia-Ukraine war was the worst thing ever. The social media rage mob, they were experiencing veritable paroxysms of righteous moral outrage over the fact that Vladimir Putin was executing civilians and bombing maternity hospitals. In many quarters on the American left, in fact, including the fake news media, people were openly demanding that we instigate a nuclear war with Russia over a dispute that they are having with a fellow former Soviet republic. And whatever happened to the anti-war left? I don't know, but it appears to have melted away completely, with all of its former members having apparently transformed into Dick Cheney-style neocon warhawks, which is quite a strange transition, but I guess nobody ever accused the American left of being hidebound by any sort of coherent or consistent political philosophy. But the focus got turned away from Ukraine pretty quickly, because 3 weeks ago, something much more serious happened. A Trump-appointed judge, in Florida of all places, struck down the CDC's airplane mask mandate, and all the wild-eyed lunatics who, a mere 48 hours prior, had been demanding thermonuclear Armageddon, they quickly pivoted to having hysterical screaming fits over the prospect of having to share an airplane cabin with people who have their faces exposed. And based on the levels of outrage and consternation they were expressing, it seemed like the rage mob and the fake news media considered the end of the mask mandate to be a much greater moral evil than Putin executing civilians and bombing maternity hospitals. But then we arrive at 2 weeks ago, and an event happens that is so shocking, so unconscionable, that it dwarfs the severity of any nuclear war or any mask mandate. A guy bought a website, and all the people who were beside themselves with grief over Ukraine 2 weeks prior, and prostrate in quaking horror over the end of the airplane mandate 1 week prior, they dutifully pivoted right on cue to howling at the moon and rending their garments over Elon Musk buying Twitter. Forget about that other worst thing ever, they told us, and the worst thing ever before that. This, damn it, this is the actual honest-to-ball worstest thing ever. Nobody's life will ever be the same if all the people whose opinions I dislike don't continue to be banned on Twitter, just like they were under Jack Rasputin, the volleyball whisperer, just like they were under the new guy, Apu from The Simpsons, or whatever the hell his name is. If a major social media platform becomes a place that is friendly to free speech, that is an extinction-level event for our democracy. If a former president of the United States is allowed to speak on a platform where the dictators of Syria, Iran, and North Korea have never been banned or sanctioned, well, that's basically the end of human civilization when you get right down to it. But then came yesterday, and suddenly Ukraine didn't matter, mask mandates didn't matter, even the ownership of Twitter didn't matter. For an event has now taken place, or will soon take place, that is the ultimate calamity of calamities, the apocalypse of apocalypses, and that is the overturning of Roe v. Wade. The most embarrassing, most slipshod, most poorly reasoned Supreme Court decision since Dred Scott, the judicial version of a drag queen, a preordained political outcome dressed up in the lipstick and the party dress of a probative exercise in constitutional analysis. We've discovered a right to privacy in the Constitution that nobody ever noticed before, declared the Roe majority. Therefore, since this right to privacy exists, by extension, abortion rights have to exist too. There you go. Bob's your uncle. They did their best to try and reverse engineer a constitutional rationale that didn't sound ridiculous and absurd, but as with every other intellectual exercise where you begin with a conclusion and try to backfill the reasoning, the results were lame and unconvincing. How do we know they were lame and unconvincing? Because it's been 49 goddamn years and then some, but there's still never been any serious attempt by the pro-abortion crowd in Congress to enshrine Roe v. Wade as the law of the land. Even during times when the Democrats have held the White House and both houses of Congress, there has been no such attempt. And doesn't that seem strange? That instead of seeking a legislative remedy, and thus taking the matter out of the hands of the courts, the people who say they so cherish this supposed right to abort have chosen instead to spend half a century leaving the thing up to the whims of the people to whom they so derisively refer, at least when it's politically convenient, as unelected judges. Well, there are two reasons for that, really. The first and biggest reason is the fact that Roe v. Wade is the biggest fundraising cash cow the Democrats have, and it is not close. Each time there's a Supreme Court vacancy with a Republican president in office, the activist left, they rake in hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars just by running ads saying, "Stop Judge so-and-so from overturning Roe v. Wade and sending women back to the dark ages," and blah, blah, blah. Send us money immediately. And it works. It works every stinking time because the Democrats and their fake news media water boys have deliberately cultivated widespread public ignorance regarding what Roe is and what Roe does and doesn't do. If you ask 100 registered Democrats, people who get their information about the world primarily from cable fake news, if you asked them what the ramifications would be if the Supreme Court overturned Roe, I will bet you 96 of them would say it would result in an immediate nationwide abortion ban. And the other 4 would say, "What's a Supreme Court?" And here's the second reason why there has never been an attempt to enshrine Roe in the U.S. Code. Because everybody on both sides knows it is a logically indefensible decision. In other words, if you tried to draft a law that enshrined abortion rights in the U.S. Code and you based it on the dubious legal rationale of the Roe decision, that law would be extremely unlikely to withstand judicial review. So then how does it look for the sanctity of Roe v. Wade when the law that was based on it gets laughed out of the courtroom? So the Democrats have found themselves in a position through all these 5 decades where it is more advantageous for them politically if the alleged right to abortion under U.S. law exists only as a relic from one frightfully dumb legal opinion authored exclusively by unelected white male judges in the year 1973. If you are old enough to remember 30 years ago, then you remember a world in which the pro-abortion activists talked a whole hell of a lot differently than today's pro-abortion activists do. Back then, there was a near universal agreement on both sides that abortion is bad. It is not something to be promoted or celebrated. It's something you should avoid if there is any possible alternative. President and First Lady Clinton, they repeatedly expressed their view on abortion policy by saying the best case scenario was that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare, and the majority of Americans agreed with them. And you know what else the pro-abortion crowd used to say back then? They used to say that if we just had comprehensive sex education in the schools and universal access to contraceptives, then it wouldn't matter if abortion was legal because it would simply die out on its own. There would no longer be any practical need for it to exist. So, how did that all work out? Because I'm pretty sure kids these days are getting all the sex education in school they could ever possibly want, plus a hell of a lot more. And I'm also sure there's a whole cornucopia of contraceptive and prophylactic products that are widely available to anybody of any age at zero or very low cost. Condoms, pills, bladders, IUDs, injections, implants, take your pick. And even if you manage to completely screw up the contraception part, they've also got freaking abortion pills you can buy over the counter at any pharmacy in the land. So I agree with what the pro-choicers were saying 30 years ago. I think there is no practical reason why surgical abortion needs to exist in the 3rd decade of the 21st century when there is such a wide array of effective, low-cost options for preventing or terminating an unwanted pregnancy. But here's the sick thing. Despite all those options that exist today that didn't exist back then, the number of abortions per capita has actually gone up and not down. This cannot happen unless abortion itself is the consumer product that is being marketed, and it very clearly is. I used to scoff at Rush Limbaugh back in the day when he would confidently assert that one day in the future, the left will celebrate abortion as a fun leisure activity and female rite of passage, but I will be damned if he was not absolutely right, because that is exactly the world we are living in now, where young women post videos on social media bragging about how they've just had their 7th or 8th abortion, where vapid female celebrities look out over a crowd of tens of thousands of purple pussy hat wearing haired landlady whales with absolute moral certitude, and they say abortion is an act of love. And did you notice how quickly our friends on the woke identitarian left seem to have rediscovered and lovingly embraced the gender binary? Even just last week, they were steadfastly refusing to say the word woman. A judge that was just confirmed to the Supreme Court claimed she couldn't tell the difference between men and women because she is not a biologist. Up until 72 hours ago, using the term pregnant women was considered transphobic hate speech on the left. But they sure did flip a quick 180 when this draft opinion came out, didn't they? Nah. You forget about all that pregnant people stuff. This is about women's rights, females with uteri and ovaries and fallopian tubes and big heaving bosoms and all those fun girly parts. Wait, what's that? No, we were not insisting just a few days ago that women have penises and men can give birth. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I shall sue you for defamation, sir, lest you cease these scurrilous and unfounded assaults on my character. Meanwhile, the chorus of trained seals on social media and the fake news, they continue yelping about whatever they are told to yelp about, because that's what they do. They probably don't remember how upset they were about Ukraine 4 weeks ago, or how upset they were about mask mandates 3 weeks ago, or how upset they were about Elon Musk 2 weeks ago, because their whole lives are taken up in the act of drifting from one rage-gasm to the next, screaming and yelling just to hear themselves scream and yell, in the hopes that the trainer will eventually toss them a delicious mackerel if they have done their job to his satisfaction. And I have to say, I think the MVP of the last 48 hours, in terms of the person who has acted the most like a wild-eyed, unhinged, lunatic, crazy person trying to earn street cred with the young radicals, is Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, also known as Big Chief Cheekbones So High, also known as Liawatha, also known as Dances with DNA, also known as Chief I'm-a-Get-a-Beer. Senator Warren is fighting mad about this one, so she emerged from her TP early yesterday morning and went right on the warpath. I will now read from her press release. Quote, "Me think pale-faced judge make bad decision. Heap bad decision. When I small girl, back on reservation, father's father tell me story of old days, when abortion performed in teepee with buffalo horn, because woman has right to choose. Many moons pass since then, many pale-faced judge come and go, like stars in sky, like blades of grass on earth, but pale-faced judge always make bad decision. Me need go now, need grab beer, make powwow chow, reflect on events with husband for heap long time." End quote. Meanwhile, the fact that this draft opinion was leaked apparently by a clerk for one of the liberal justices, yes, it is the most shockingly improper act ever perpetrated by someone working in that building. But you know what else it is? It's the predictable endpoint when you've raised an entire generation of young people to believe they should never let institutional norms get in the way of their activism. If you want to produce young adults who respect institutional norms, you can start by not teaching them that the institutions are all founded in racism and white supremacy and are thus inherently evil. This is your chickens coming home to roost, and it's also an amusing bit of irony that they're always styling themselves as guardians of democracy over on the Democrat side, upholders of the rule of law, but each time they don't get exactly what they want, they seem to go straight to violence and intimidation and demanding that every institution refusing to comply with their demands be burned to the ground. So hey guys, if you want me to believe you value our democratic institutions, how about just once at some point in this century accepting the result of an election you lost? Because last time I checked, you guys still haven't acknowledged the validity of Bush's victory in 2000, or Bush's second victory in 2004, or Trump's victory in 2016. But when your guy wins, allegedly, you call us traitors and insurrectionists just for asking why 5 states all needed to stop counting because of a broken water main, allegedly, in Atlanta. We're also saying yet again what happens when you're never willing to articulate a limiting principle about anything. What legal limits are you willing to accept on abortion? They refuse to ever articulate any because they are hidebound by a radical orthodoxy that brooks no moderation and no limitation. It is their big strategy for the midterms. If this is it, if they've got nothing else but vote for us because Republicans want to take your abortions away, they've probably taken a bad ass kicking and just made it worse. The idea that millions of voters are going to ignore the collapsing economy, the open border, the explosion of violent crime, 40-year high hyperinflation, the transing of the kids, and return the Democrats to power over abortion? As effective election year strategies go, that is not one. And we will leave it there for tonight. Thank you very much for watching. Have a pleasant tomorrow. See you Friday. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.